Hello, boys and girls, and welcome to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this, ladies and gentlemen, is the review of Beetlejuice, the new dark fantasy comedy horror film directed by Tim Burton, starring Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, and Catherine O'Hara, as well as Jenna Ortega. This is the sequel, long-awaited sequel to the 1988 film Beetlejuice. And I make no secrets about it. Absolutely love Beetlejuice. That was probably one of my favorite movies growing up, as it is for a lot of people who come up in the same era as me. This is a film that is highly quotable, a joy to watch, still joyous to watch to this day. And for years, ever since 1988, people have been clamoring for a sequel to Beetlejuice, and I'm one of them. It's not a sequel that I was just beating down the door in Hollywood to, for Tim Burton to make. If they made it, good. If they didn't, okay, I'll be all right. I still have the original film. But we waited so long, and we finally got it this year with Beetlejuice. As I said before, returning, playing Beetlejuice is Michael Keaton. Also returning is Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and joining this cast, we have Justin Theroux, Monica Bellucci, Jenna Ortega, and William Dafoe. And let me just say, if you're a Tim Burton fan, you will love this film. If you love Pee-wee's Big Adventure, if you love the first Beetlejuice and, Mars Attacks, and, films like that, this is the film for you. It is a true Tim Burton film. If you're looking for a worthy sequel to a classic from the 1980s, maybe not so much. This film does not have that same magic. That 1988 film was just perfect in my eyes. I watched it recently in preparation for this sequel, and I enjoyed it. Watched it like I was watching it for the first time. I had fun watching it. I laughed out loud. I remember lines that I can recite, word for word, and just had a good time watching that movie. And it brought back memories of the first time I watched it, and I had that same joy. And this film, I just did not have that. It's decent, but it's not Beetlejuice. It doesn't have that same pop as that first film. One of the things, of course, you don't have Alec Baldwin returning. You don't have Gina Davis returning as the Maitlands. And they kind of added to that in the first film. They helped made that first film. Yes, the movie is called Beetlejuice, but let's not forget, in that first film, Beetlejuice wasn't in it a lot. Beetlejuice was only in that movie for about 15 minutes. He was not in that movie a lot. But you remember everything about him. One reason you remember everything about him because it was so sparingly used in the film. But what carried that film was the chemistry between Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis, along with Winona Ryder, along with Catherine O'Hara, and Jeremy, what's his name? Not Jeremy, Jeffrey Jones, who is absent from this film for reasons. You can Google it and find out why he's not in this movie. But his character had I would say a worthy send-off. I'll just put it like that as far as this film is concerned. But we don't have that connection here. With the new additions to this cast, Justin Theroux, and Jenna Ortega, who is basically the star, Jenna Ortega. And I like Jenna Ortega. She worked with Tim Burton on Wednesday, the Netflix show, which I thought it was phenomenal. Loved that show. I thought Jenna Ortega was perfect for that role as Wednesday Addams, and I thought she was perfectly cast as the daughter of Lydia Dietz in this film. I mean, that's the character. That's who she is in Wednesday. So it was perfect casting, and I didn't have a problem with her performance. It was just it was nothing to latch on to. See, Lydia Dietz in the first film, um, you can connect to that character, even though she was this golf moody girl or whatever. But you connected to Lydia Dietz. Um, you couldn't connect to Jenna Ortega's character here. At least I didn't. I didn't connect to her character, and the film suffered for that because the movie asks you, and towards the end of this film, in the third act of this film, to be concerned for this character, to be worried for this character, and I wasn't. I really wasn't, and yeah, and it's not like I said, it's not Jenna Ortega's fault. Yeah, I think it was really the screenplay. Um, let's break down the performances. Michael Keaton, Michael Keaton returning as Beetlejuice. He was Beetlejuice. Um, Michael Keaton hadn't missed a beat after 35 years. He's still Beetlejuice. It's not the same Beetlejuice, I would say. He didn't have that same pop as you had in the first film, but it was still entertaining. He was still cracking his jokes. He was still rude, crude, and everything that you remember from the first film. So, for that reason, yes, he did a great job. Winona Ryder, she was good. This isn't the Lydia Dietz that we know from the first film. Of course, she's grown up. She has a daughter now, and so on and so forth. So it's a different character, yet and still, you know, I did enjoy her. Winona Ryder did a pretty decent job. Not nothing to knock his shocks off, but the MVP of this movie, I feel, in my humble opinion, was Catherine O'Hara, reprising her role as Delia Dietz in this film, the stepmother to Lydia. I thought she was the funniest part of this movie. I really love. I always loved Catherine O'Hara, and I had the biggest crush on her from the first film. And even now, she's much older now, and I still didn't care. I still had a crush on her. I love Catherine O'Hara. She is one of the most phenomenal comedic actresses working, and I think she never really got her due. I think she's so underrated. So underrated. And she doesn't get the shine. And I just want to take this time to give her flowers, man. She is so good in this movie because she was so good in the first movie. And for her to connect to that character and able to channel that character after 35 years or so, however long it's been, and still capture that character perfectly. Winona Ryder couldn't do it. And to an extent, Michael Keaton really didn't do it perfectly. He came close to replicating that character, but it still was a little off at spots. But Catherine O'Hara was perfectly placed in this film. Who wasn't? Who was out of place in this movie? There was two, and that was the two of the new additions to this cast, and that was Justin Theroux as Lydia's boyfriend or manager, whatever he was. Pointless character. It's a pointless character, but not as pointless as William Dafoe's character. What a waste of William Dafoe. It was such a waste. I didn't even know why he was in the movie. When the movie ended, I was like, what was the point of William Dafoe in this movie? I mean, really? Oh man, it really bothered me. It did, because I love William Dafoe. William Dafoe is one of the greatest actors in the world, and I'm not just shooting that out there. He truly is one of the greatest actors. You want to talk about range? William Dafoe has range. But anywho's, he was wasted in this movie. The screenplay was a little duh. It fell flat, It started off good, And I don't know if I should, maybe I should link the writing and the direction here, Tim Burton's direction here. It started off really good. I was really invested for the first 30 to 45 minutes. And then it kind of just plateaued and it never went up. It was like that was the peak. And then it went down and it just, I don't know, it never really rose to the heights that I thought it was going to go. Granted, I didn't have super high, phenomenal, astronomical expectations for this movie, but I thought that we would at least we would at least get the joy that Beetlejuice from 1988 had, and unfortunately, this film didn't do it. For example, without getting into spoilers, there's a villain in this film. Actually, there are a few villains in this film, alive and dead, and they were, they weren't. Well, no, they were all dead. Spoilers, but they were all dead. But it was one of the dead villains. Well, one of the villains. Why I keep calling them dead? They're all dead. They're dealing with ghosts here. One of the villains arcs in this film was so stupid, and it was set up so stupidly, and the climactic end to that a conclusion or whatever was even dumber. It was just pointless. I guess the theme of the day was pointless. There was just a lot of pointless stuff in this movie, and that was the biggest one. For me, I almost checked out. I was really like, oh my god, but we had like 20 minutes left in the movie, um, so I couldn't just leave. But it was like, oh my god, what was the point of that? I mean, it was set up like it was gonna be this big twist, and you saw through it. But cool, we're gonna go through it. All right, the little thing happens, and literally about 6 to 7 minutes later, it concluded. In an hour and a half movie, the big plot twist, the big storyline that they set up, only lasted 10 minutes total. In the middle of the movie, it was just pointless. The other villain in this film, which I thought was going to be a bigger villain, a more I guess you say a bigger threat, I should say, and it really wasn't. It didn't do anything for me either. So despite all that, I will say the movie's fine. I know it doesn't sound like it, but it was all right. It wasn't super horrible. It wasn't like unwatchable. Even though at points I was kind of scratching my head and squinting, like, but it wasn't like mad, like I want my money back mad. But it's I've seen it once, and I don't have to see it again, and that's sadly where I land with this, coming off of a film, this being the sequel of a film that I hold in high regard in my life, and that part makes it even worse. But it is what it is. Beetlejuice gets a letter grade of a C minus. Yeah, it was like, okay, it's just like, okay, I seen it, and that's that. Nothing. It's really forgettable. Like right now, if I wouldn't have wrote down notes, I would have forgot half the stuff that I wrote down right here. It's really that forgettable. Man, it's disappointing. It's really disappointing to say that I ain't even have that high of expectations, honestly. But I thank God, because if I had high expectations, oh my God, I probably would have cried in the theater. But it is what it is. But maybe it's just me. I would like to know your opinion about Beetlejuice. Am I tripping? Do you think it's as good as the original? I don't know what I'm talking about. Hey, I would love to hear your opinions. You can email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel and like this video if you don't mind. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show if you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Beetlejuice. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone, and until we speak again, you all be blessed.